All right. Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, January 22nd, 2024. I'd ask that all those present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Atkins.
Here.
Mr. Brado.
Here.
Mrs. Rose.
Here.
Mr. Olgiati.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. Witt here. Mr. Verkest.
Here. All right, great. Next on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of January 8th, 2024, approval of the bills in the amount of $2,288,978.51, and approval of the December 2023 preliminary revenue and expenditure report. If there are no changes, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose to approve the consent agenda. Any discussions on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next on our agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, I am going to ask that we remove item E5. I'm not certain that reappointment is appropriate, so for now, I would like to just hold off on that, but I'd be looking for a motion, unless there are no other changes, looking for a motion to approve the regular agenda minus item E5.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Brado. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is announcements. I do have a few announcements, and I know there's some others, so we'll get to everybody here. From January 16th of this year through February 28th, SMART is actively seeking public and community input on their newer Smarter Mobility Program. Your participation in this planning process is extremely valuable, and we and SMART truly appreciate any input you are willing to provide. There are also virtual options, meetings you can attend, or virtual meetings you can attend. You can find more information on our township website about these meetings and how you can learn more about the Smarter program. We have rolled out our refresh of the township website, and while we are still adding new features daily and working out a few kinks, you can sign up for notifications of any updated posts on the township website with the click of a button. Just click on Register, found at the bottom of the home page of the website, to sign up. Our Harrison Township Library features many different programs throughout the month. Their updated calendar can be found on the library website, htlibrary.org. For more information on times and events, you can also call the library, 586-329-1261. For more information on any of these, as well as all other township events, you can call the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Visit our website, www.harrisontownshipmi.gov, or follow us on Twitter at HarrisonTWPMI. We do have a busy election cycle this year, and so our clerk, Adam Witt, has news and information about new changes to the election process.
Yeah, just wanted to remind voters, we did just recently, last week, send out the first round of absentee ballots for the presidential primary coming up on February 27th, so those should be in the mailboxes in the next couple days if they're not already there already. With voting this year, you have to make a selection on ballot style. You have to either pick a Republican ballot or a Democrat ballot. I know that is the least popular decision that people have to make, but you have to make it for this. So if we reach out to you, we're going to need that information back, because I know we have a bunch of applications without that. So we do need that. In addition to absentee voting, new this year, you'll have the opportunity for 9 days of early voting. So from February 17th through February 25th, from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. each of those 9 days, You'll have the opportunity to come here to the boardroom and vote in person early. So that's an opportunity for residents to come here and vote. And always you have the opportunity to vote on Election Day. What you'll notice on Election Day is we did do some precinct consolidation. So the precincts, instead of having 10, we're down to 6. Recent changes in election law allowed us to increase that size. But we did send out cards for that, and we're sending out reminder postcards to everyone that should see in the next couple of weeks. The changes are made, you may be in a different precinct, but you're probably voting in the same or a similar location. If you have any questions on voting, call the clerk's office or visit our website, htvotes.com, and we'll get you the information you need to vote.
Good, thank you. We also have a little bit of information from our treasurer's office.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I wanted to talk about some process improvements we've been working on the last 3 months in the treasurer's office, and it's regarding EMS and fire service billing. So when I looked at the billing for fire service and EMS through our fire department, I found out that they use a company called Acumed. Acumed does all of their billing for EMS and fire services. Found out that Acumed, although is a good billing company, basically what they did is they received paper checks because they have no type of online or electronic payment types. So they would bill customers, and then what happens is paper checks would be sent to Acumed. Acumed then would send them monthly to the fire department. Fire department would have to reconcile all those paper checks against all the bills that they sent to Acumed for payment. Then they come to the treasurer's office, and we would go ahead and cash those. And what we've done is the treasurer's office has automated that process. And we've worked with both Acumed and the fire department. So now what's happening is there are no more checks that come into Acumed. Everything that comes into Acumed actually goes into an electronic payment that we set up for them. And they send us an ACH, which is basically electronic payment. So we no longer, or the fire department no longer gets those checks. In addition, we also have put a portal both on Acumed's site and on the treasurer's site, where people can actually, instead of paying, if they go to Acumed to pay, takes them to our site and they can pay electronically through our Point and Pay, same product that we implemented for taxes and water billing. So we're expanding Point and Pay, and this has actually cut down quite a bit of administration work for the fire department. And people are more happy too because they don't have to write checks for those who don't want to. And we don't have to deal with all the paper. So just want to give everybody an update. We did implement that last week. So it's up and running, and we're pretty proud of that.
All right, good. All right, thank you. Last but not least, we happen to have our county commissioner, Barb Zinner, here, and I'd like to invite her up for an update on county matters.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Had a board meeting tonight, or today, at 3, for our first time for the year. Some people were tired of reading books at home. Their wife, they said, don't you have, I have my honey-do list for you here. Why are you going to your meetings? The one man likes to leave early. He didn't want to leave early tonight. Anyway, we had quite a few things on the agenda. One of the main things is we had an update on the jail intake center, and you probably heard about this some to quite a bit. They're going to be giving us monthly updates, that whole genre of people, builders, and it's a whole group of people, of course. And you probably, I don't know if you've seen pictures of it, or you will be seeing pictures of it. They had big drawings for us. So I want to explain that when you see these pictures, because it's a jail, and it looks like it's a major invitation hotel extravaganza to go to. They did studies on jails, because the old jail, which is, quite old, not as old as myself and maybe a couple people here, but it was old. And one of the problems with the jail that we have now is there were turnings, and there were foreigners and things were different, old. They had a problem with that because our population, our people, people with crimes are different thinking now than they were years ago. There was a respect for police. Now there's a lot of people who don't have respect for police. So when they build jails now, they try to have no corners, no turns, everything straight where they can see everything. There's a lot of goes into things now because people are different. And so the picture looking at what the jail is it's kind of a U, and there are 4 floors, and you see all this glass, which makes it look very, I want to say, beautiful. But they had several people working on this. I mean, it's a major undertaking, huge. And I thought, gee, that looks beautiful. And they were quick to explain that when you have, this is also an intake center for people in acute mental problems, having an acute mental situation, and acute drug situation, and criminals. So you're getting these 3 different entities brought into an intake center. Some will be staying for a short time. Criminals will be taken and whatever. And you could have a mixture of these situations, as you could imagine and you see on the news. So one of the reasons there's so many windows, or a large area of windows, is sunlight. You know how we feel happier in the summertime versus the drab weather we have now? Is sunlight, and that was one of the reasons they made that such a window area, especially in Michigan, is because it makes people feel better, and it's better for mental conditions anyway. So that was one of the things that they brought out. So it isn't because it's a vacation place. It's not a vacation place. We have the same sheriff, the same everything, and just keep that in mind, please. And so they're going to break ground. They're not going to break ground. They're going to start demolition in 2 areas of the old jail. They expect in June, and that's going to be the start of it, and it's going to go on for about 3 years till it's all done. That's how mammoth the project is. Anyway, just to make that clear to you about that, which is real interesting. And there's no taxpayer money in that. That was almost all of that was federal and state grants. And other than that, I'm sure there's something else I had, but that was probably the biggest one for now. Except we are considering a land bank authority. We voted on it today. We have a final vote Thursday. The authority has money that is given to them or paid to them. They have money. You have to ask for it. And it's used for, if you're part of this authority, which we're considering doing as a county, then you could have it for depressed areas, depressed buildings, depressed things. They know where they are, and you would get them or not. There's pros and cons. There's a lot of pros, there's a lot of cons, and it can go anywhere in the county. We take a final vote on Thursday, and we'll see where we end up on that. Other than that, I think those are the big hitters for today. And thank you very much.
Thank you. If there are no other announcements, we'll move forward on our agenda. Next item on the agenda is item D1 from the clerk's office.
Yes, at our January 8th meeting this year, we adopted resolution number 2, which set tonight as the date for the first public hearing for the Cloverleaf North Guam Drive Special Assessment District. This is known as the public hearing necessity. Notice for the public hearing was published twice in the Journal and also mailed directly to the titled owner for the property to be assessed based on the records that we have from our assessment department by first-class mail with the date of the hearing. So we'd invite individuals to speak for or against the project. It's their opportunity to speak and preserve their right to appeal to the state tax tribunal any assessments.
And if they wish to maintain that appeal, they have to say.
You would say your name as well as your address, just so it can be recorded properly in the minutes.
Okay, so Certainly, if someone wishes to speak publicly, they're not required to identify themselves or their address, but if they wish to maintain that right of appeal, then they have to,
Correct.
the record has to reflect their name and address to know that they were here and did verbally appeal at the hearing. So, we have on-deck chairs, just based on the fact that it's my neighborhood and I recognize a lot of faces. I'm guessing that the majority of folks present are here to speak either for or against this. So in the interest of keeping that process moving, if you wish to speak, you can, once we open the public hearing, step up to the podium. But if you know that someone's speaking and you'd like to speak, we encourage and invite you to fill the on-deck chair, so that way when the speaker's done, the next person is ready. And that way we respect your time as well as ours to make sure that the process moves as smooth as possible. So with that, I'd be looking for a motion to open the public hearing number 1 at 7:16 p.m.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
We've got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Brado to open public hearing number 1. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment on the motion to open, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Tominelli?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Brickhouse?
Yes, okay. So anyone who wishes to speak for or against this project, we invite you to come on up at this time.
Mr. Supervisor, prior to any of the residents that are in person, I will record for the minutes that we received a letter from Mrs. Dawn Barath in opposition to the project, as well as a Mr. Ray Bruder against the project. So those will be recorded in the minutes.
Okay? Okay.
Evening, Board. My name's Bill Servil, for the one that doesn't know me. I'm here because my sister lives in this district, and I used to live in this district. I know quite a bit about it. I thought maybe I could help expedite this, because I've got, I think, a comment on each one of the points that someone would make. So if I could, I'm going to read this. It'll probably only take me a few minutes. The obvious issue with this SAD is that the two subdivisions are completely different projects, which require totally different contractors. This could lead to a host of problems. These should be separate projects, generated by separate petition drives, if at all. There is no fair way to allocate the true cost per homeowner given the parameters listed in the petition. Petition explicitly states the project is to be based on front footage. The township literature talks about costs being allocated by parcel. I am pretty sure that the township cannot arbitrarily change the method of allocation and payment without the homeowners having a say in the matter. That should be done by 51% of all the homeowners in the district. The petition describes the scope of the work to be completed, but does not reveal the square footage of the asphalt portion or the square footage of any concrete replacement. That said, how can you possibly project a cost? I also recall a rule that if the bids exceed 110% of the original estimates, the project could be at risk. During the conversation with Adam Witt, he told me the township did not have hard numbers at that time. The Department of Roads does have historical numbers from prior years that can be used. However, no marking or measuring of concrete had been done before the township put a number to paper. The asphalt segment should be easy to estimate because the entire roadway will be done. This method does not work for the concrete segment because the amount of concrete to be replaced has yet to even be determined. So how can the estimated cost of $645,041 possibly be accurate? Something more than, in quotes, select concrete panels should have been determined and included in the petition. The only work in Cloverleaf Estates 2 that should be the owner's responsibility is the cost of any concrete replacement, which to my knowledge is an undetermined quantity. Crack sealing is considered maintenance by the Road Commission. Cloverleaf Estates subdivision is unique because there is a fully functional underground wet drainage system that connects to the Petticonlet drain. The drainage system appears to be working as designed. At most, the catch basins may need cleaning. Cleaning catch basins is classified as maintenance by the Department of Roads. Why else would the county own a vacuum truck? Question remains, what will the residents in Cloverleaf Estates 2 get for their money? Cloverleaf Estates 1 needs major drainage work, so they qualify for the county grant. However, according to the county engineer working on this project, Cloverleaf Estates number 2 does not qualify for the drainage grant due to the scope of the drainage work addressed in the grant application. I canvassed some of the homeowners in Cloverleaf Estates 2, found that some were not aware that the drainage grant cost will be on top of the numbers cited in the petition. One person thought the grant would cover 50% of the entire project. The grant only covers 50% of the drainage work. This means the other 50% will be borne by the homeowners. That additional cost was not factored into the cost presented to the residents. The asphalt road in Cloverleaf Estates number 1 is at end of life. In my opinion, much of the deterioration is due to modification of the ditch drainage system over the years. I resided at 39300 Cloverleaf for 21 years. I believe most modifications of the road ditches had been made before I built my home in 1978. The Department of Roads did not see fit to stop work that may have been performed without permits. In my opinion, the Department of Roads is at least partially responsible for the current condition of those roads. I got 2 more points. The culverts serving the Petticonlet drain are at least 57 years old. Most likely, these culverts are rusted out. The roads could cave in, creating an emergency. These culverts were designed to carry more stormwater than now required due to the change in the directional flow of the drain. Lom Street is at or near the high point of that drain now. This means the culverts should be much smaller when replaced. And then, just for general information that people haven't done the math, as of September 26, 2023, that's when I FOIA'd things, out of 23 homes in Cloverleaf Estates number 1, just 7 homeowners signed a petition. There is one additional home at 28222 South River Road that signed a petition. This equates to 35% signing rate for phase 1. 31 of 47 homeowners in Cloverleaf Estates number 2 signed a petition. This equates to 66% rate. The overall percentage of both 1 and 2, I'm rounding up, is 56%. It's actually odd change. So I think there's a number of good points there that have to be considered. Mr. Witt, I tried to get 2 appointments with you, left with your deputy twice for a request for you to call me. I was going to discuss this stuff with you, but I never got a call back.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sheila Borkowitz. I live at 39405 Cloverleaf. I live on the pavement side. And I have lived there for 40 years. And the blacktop side, excuse me, whatever. The side that's going to have to pay double. Anyway, these roads have been falling apart for as long as I've been there. Nothing has ever been done to fix them. And the biggest part of the problem is the drainage. When it rains, there is water sitting on our street from the drainage ditch to the end of our driveway, which is all the way across our property. We've had it where it floods all the way into our backyard. I mean, this water gets under this pavement. If it gets cold, it freezes, expands, thaws, cracks. So all I see is if you don't fix the drainage problem, how are you going to fix this road problem? Because we're going to be paying for this road for how many years after it starts falling apart again? Because there's still water sitting on our street every time it rains. So I don't see, without the drainage being fixed, where fixing the road is going to make a difference for us. Now, if you want to talk about cementing us all the way through from South River Road to the drainage ditch, but just replacing what we already have that does not work and not fixing the drainage problem does not solve the problem.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Borkowitz. Sheila's my wife. I live at 39405 Cloverleaf also. Just to expand on what she has to say is, I think you've seen the streets, when it rains, it basically floods across the street. So if we pay this money, first of all, this is a significant increase in our taxes over how many years this is going to be generated in, and how long is that road going to last if the blacktop is fixed? Will it be a couple of years because of the freeze-thaw issue? If we decide to sell the house in 2 years, I'm still responsible for paying for this road that I'm not going to be living on anymore, if it's even going to be repaired correctly. And the issue is, the drainage is an issue on our street. I mean, a school bus goes down the road and you can feel our house shake because of probably the water table is so high. And that if you don't fix that drainage problem, get the water away from our house, my sump pump goes basically nonstop all year round. It's like a fire hose when it does rain outside. So the water that's in that area is just going to eat up those roads instantly. We're going to have 4 inches of blacktop road that's going to last who knows how long. What kind of warranty is on this road work? Is any of that public knowledge? Yeah, or is it going to be refinished? Is it going to be maintained? Again, there's nothing in writing right now that I've seen on how this road is going to be repaired and fixed and maintained. I think it would be better just to tear the whole road up right now and just spread gravel on it and have that gravel dredged how many times a year just to smooth it out. It'd be much better than it is right now that for the past how many years that we've been driving on these roads. 40 years? Yeah, and I've been there for 20-some years. They did have the drainage system rerouted from, it was going from our side to the east, northeast, I guess. They tried to change the flow of the water to remove the water. I know, Ken, on your side of the road, I do a lot of work with that ditch even after I go out there probably 3 times a year with my rake and I make sure that ditch is still not getting overgrown, and hopefully the water is flowing in that direction. Otherwise, before they did that work, it was stagnant. Again, my sump pump, it's just recirculating the water constantly. Maybe I'm getting off track here, but again, if we're not fixing the problem with the drainage, that road, money that we're spending on this, I mean, in our section, there's 23 lots that are going to spend $13,871 annually that's an increase of almost $1,800 a year in my taxes, which is a significant increase for, I'm not sure what I'm getting for that money. It's not totally spelled out right now, but I did not sign the petition. Yes, I don't like driving on messed up roads, but it seems like there's got to be a better solution. Can anybody tell me why the people on the blacktop section of this is paying twice as much as people that live on concrete? I mean, we all use the roads. Our services use the roads. The Amazon trucks use the same road going down to every single one of our houses, but yet we have to pay twice as much as the people on concrete? I'm not sure I understand that. Lawn service teams that come through, all their trucks, they're going to be tearing up this brand-new road that's 4 inches thick. How long is it going to last? That's all I got to say. Again,
I've got that already down as a question.
okay.
I already have that as one of the questions.
Yeah, I think
So just a
think I
point
said
of clarification, there's a lot of misinformation, there's a lot of things I would love to answer. In a public hearing, we typically don't engage in a back and forth, so I know it's frustrating to ask those questions. It's okay to ask them, and I'll do my best to answer them, but I don't answer them while they're produced, because it
Right.
typically causes kind of an escalation in the meeting, and so.
I understand.
But I've tried to write everything down that everyone's asked.
I guess I'm just disagreeing with, I didn't sign the petition, and I still disagree with the solution for this right now, and I do not want to spend this money on what I understand. I don't even understand what I'm getting for this money.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sue Wetruba. I live at 39284 North Blom. I'm right on the ditch in Cloverleaf 2. So I'm on the cement side. I've been there 40 years. I built in 1984. I know all about that ditch. I actually loved the cattails. I miss them. But anyways, if I could address this gentleman, if you're getting a new road, we're gonna get squiggles. $7,000 for black squiggles, which is gonna really devalue the sub. It's gonna look hideous. I went and looked at Brandenburg Road, took photos, and that's what we're gonna get. It's an eyesore. You guys need to research the drainage for them, because that part of the sub, the first part, is really bad. But they're getting a new road. They're gonna tear it up and put the 3 inches of the asphalt for the base, and then 4 inches of new asphalt. They're getting a new road. We're getting squiggles. And they're gonna patch cement here and there. It's gonna look hideous. I mean, we have a beautiful sub. Each home is a different builder. You command 10%, I was in real estate for years. You command 10% more premium for a home in our sub. People wanna live there. With this is gonna be an eyesore. If you're gonna do it, do the whole road. I'll pay for concrete then. But you have to look at the drainage. I think you're jumping the gun. I think it should be counted as separate, and do them and just leave us alone then. But let the cracks stay for a while. They've been there for years. They're not doing anything. And then maybe eventually we'll just get new concrete. But I don't think putting squiggles down is gonna help. And that's all I have to say. I'm against it.
Hi, my name is Craig Smike. I live at 39300 Cloverleaf. I've lived there longer than Bill has now, 23 years. I'm going to start with the petition thing. I signed the petition. My question is, can I recall my name off that petition, pull my name off that petition? Right, number one. Number two is, that drainage ditch, as long as I've lived there, is an eyesore. There's a 4-foot culvert that has this much of it exposed, this much. The rest is filled with sludge, and it's now flowing in a different direction. Now, it flows pretty fast through my property, but once it gets across the street by the Borkowitz's, it just sits there. And then at the other side of Blum, it just sits there. It doesn't flow like it should. And so that would be my question as well. The third thing is the maintenance on that road. Is that, the county comes through there maybe 4 or 5 times in the summer, and they fill those potholes at random. I mean, you might as well just throw dice and throw it out there and say, which ones are we going to fill? They don't fill them. And it's just that cold patch, and it's out of there in a week. And so there's more and more holes all the time. Now, it's better to ride on it now until they put the salt down today on our side, on the Cloverleaf side. It was frozen over, and it was smoother than it's been any time in a long, long time. So those are my questions. I want to recall my name off the petition and say I'm not going to sign it. Okay? Thank you.
Hello, my name's Kyle Pierce. I reside at 39248 Cloverleaf Street. The younger members of the community, as you can see. First thing that I was told when I moved there was, we're gonna get a new road. That's one of the selling points of this community. They're due for a new road. It's gonna happen, you're gonna get it. Bought the house thinking it was gonna help my property value and all that, and here we are. Not getting it, and I'm going to have to pay for it. I don't know what's going on with the taxes. I think in the newspaper we're going to build a new facility for you guys, right? So I don't know, just kind of question about, kind of where the money goes. I understand. I went to the first meeting. Another thing that I didn't necessarily like was how the grant was talked about. I understand it. We want to get the road, kind of tell people we want to get the road, get them numbers. $7,000 for concrete, $14,000 for blacktop. And then if we get the grant, that won't reduce your costs, but you'll get the drainage on top of that. I didn't like how that was manipulated to get votes. And then the other manipulation to get votes is the difference between concrete and blacktop. There's a lot more concrete residents than blacktop residents, yet our vote doesn't count for more than the concrete residents, right? So obviously, you're gonna get more votes for when it's only 7 grand, and us blacktop people, we have no say, right? So we are the few, and if you're gonna ask for more money, I think then my vote should count for more. Another thing, again, back to the drainage. Drainage is obviously the number one issue. That has to be taken care of. That was one of the first things that I did when I moved in here. I have a ditch out in front, so I have a little bit less culverts than everyone else has, but I did have to replace the drain underneath my driveway. So those are costs that I already have into this project that, I'm not gonna recuperate for. And I guess that's basically all I have.
Hi, Dennis Damask, 28300 East Blum, so we're in Cloverleaf 2. I don't think the pavement is that bad on our part of the street. I understand that a lot of people don't like the blacktop, including my wife, and she would love to see it fixed. However, the amount of money this is going to cost is pretty outrageous. And the worst part of it, in addition to spending all this money as far as from what I see in my end of the street, is, again, like everybody says, if you don't fix the drainage, you're not fixing the problem. And in addition to that, the way this is done, the people that signed this petition in 2, who are spending enough money, but several people I talked to who are signing the petition in 2, said that they did it because they wanted to help the people in 1. Now, unfortunately, 50% of the people in 1 didn't sign the petition because they don't want to pay this money for this if it's not done right, or even if it is done right. So it's kind of outrageous that the people in 2 are forcing the people in 1, plus the neighbors in 1 that don't want it, to pay for this. One other thing I would like to say, if this does go through, and it happens, I've had a lake at the end of my driveway for 35 years. Every time it rains, it doesn't go away for 3 or 4 days. I hope to God that that's the 2 sections of cement that are actually being replaced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ray Azar, 28222 South River Road. So, I definitely it got involved in this even though I'm on South River Road, but I'm part of that community. I've been here for as many years as the highest number I think that was picked here. I've gone down to the county countless years and countless times. I've talked to supervisors. I've talked to board members before, and I've always heard the same thing, which leads me to believe that this township doesn't have the money to fix roads. We had a vote on it not too long ago. The roads are up to us. Patch will come, the county will do this. I would love to have everybody go at that county, see if you can get money. I don't think it's out there, so it comes to us. Fairness in this country, everybody's vote is equal. So as I sit here and I look at all of you, you all drive down that same road that I drive down. Whether you're on the concrete or you're on the blacktop, we have to drive through a minefield, and it's only getting worse. So this proposal simply said, let's take a look at what it's going to cost. I had nothing to do with it other than to support it, to talk to people. No misrepresentation, none of that. Just simply, if you want it, it's this much. If you don't, why are you going to pay more? If anything, somebody who's on the blacktop should be asking, why am I paying double? Okay? Because it should be even for everybody. We all drive over that. You want to sell your house and you don't believe that a nice, clean section of street pulling up to your homes is going to increase your value? The drainage issue is separate, and it's a valid point. There's no question about the validity of that drainage. And I believe that that will be addressed here because the funds that were supposed to come to the county are supposed to help on that portion to get that drainage done. Because we've all seen what the drainage does here. How do we get better? Coming here and just complaining all the time gets us nothing. It's gotten us nothing for 30 to 40 years. It's going to cost us. Nobody's here to pay for it. We need to make sure our tax dollars go to a special assessment, and it's for one thing: fix the roads in front of our home. Nobody's going to bail us out. We have to.
Yeah, my name's Lloyd Wood. I live at 28329 East Blum. I've got a few things here that, I originally signed this petition thinking one thing, and it's turning out to be something completely different. So I'm against it. I'm not for it at all anymore. The drain issue is a big thing, and then when I look down the breakdown on this, when you have 23 homes on the portion of the road that is desperately needing repair, and only 7 of those people, plus 1, signed a petition, that tells me they don't want their road fixed. They don't care about their road. So why should the other people have to pay to get their portion fixed? Because I'm on the concrete. There ain't nothing going to be done by me. Nothing at all. And this coming down and saying they're going to seal the cracks is going to work, it don't. I had my driveway leveled a few years back. They put that leveling caulk or whatever you want to call it in there. It's back to where it was. 2 years later, it's right back where it was. The first year they came back and repaired it, it's gone again. So it don't work. The water still gets down in there, and it'll still raise and lower the road. So this is, and then the other problem I have is with this breakdown of this 2/3, 1/3 numbers. I talked to Adam Witt about this earlier, and he's using a fuzzy math problem to come up with these figures than a true 2/3, 1/3 math problem that I was taught in school, and how we would have done it when I was working and we established budgets for jobs at work. You don't divide everything into one and then do your division. You break it down into the number of things in one parcel and then the other, and then you do your 2/3, 1/3, and then you divide for the final figure. I'm 75 years old. By the time this is paid off, I'll be dead. And the whole thing about just raising your property value up, it's not. It really doesn't make that much difference. And what's going to happen to our taxes? If you tell me the property value is going up, that means our taxes on top of this assessment is going up. Where does it end?
Good evening. I'm Kyle Young. I'm a new member to your guys' community. Thanks for having me out tonight. I live at 39461 North Blom. I'm on the blacktop side. I agree with a lot of what was said tonight. Mine will be short and sweet. I currently do not support it. I have a young family, and this doesn't fit into my financial plan at the time. But I am willing to be a part of the solution. I'm just not sure this is the one. I've worked in construction for almost 30 years now. This is more of a guesstimate than an estimate. I'd like to see a lot more detail, a lot more clarification and exclusions in this cost assessment, be able to move forward with it. But as I said, I'd like to be a part of the solution, not the problem, so I will continue to listen, and hopefully I can do that. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Tim Reed. I live at 28330 East Blome. One of the things that I noticed when someone came to my house with a petition is all this work's being done, but but nothing's being done on East Bloom. So I have to pay for everybody's stuff on these other roads. I'm totally against it. You know, and then you have the drainage problem that hasn't been solved, so I'd like to see that too. So I'll make it short and sweet, I'm against.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Again, I live at 39405 Cloverleaf. I was up here earlier. I just want to make sure, again, I agree with a lot of you, and I would like the roads to be improved for sure, but I guess my biggest complaint, and everybody has said certain things about, I don't live on the blacktop, I don't live here, nothing's being done to my street, but we all drive on these streets. It's all part of our subdivision. We're all driving on these. Like I said, our lawn services drive on these streets. We're all part of this subdivision, so I don't know why certain ones should be charged more or less, 2/3, 1/3, whatever it is, twice as much. If we're going to fix this, it seems like it's our community, it's our roads, everybody should be paying equal. I think I said that earlier, I think, but just wanted to reiterate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sue Wittroba, 39284 North Blum. I just forgot to make a couple comments. I did talk to the county about the drain. It is an eyesore, and I worry kids play in there all the time. They were in there all weekend. They've been in there. There's rusty pipes. It's probably going to collapse one day, and it should be smaller. They dug it too deep. I asked if they could put riprap to make it at least nicer looking, and they said that's a possibility, but I don't know, I haven't come back. So I don't know when they're gonna regrade, but that pipe is way too big, and I hardly had any water in there for years. Once they came in, the guy said, oh, I can't speak English. He kept digging and digging and dug it way too deep, and I have always 3-4 feet of water, scummy water. I took pictures one year, I had a guy come out the next day, it was clearly PFAS in there. And I got a picture of all the foam. I don't know where it's coming from, but I worry about the kids playing there. And so I'd like that addressed. I'm thinking of putting a sign, private property. My other neighbor on the other side said people actually were fishing in there, and they all think the county owns it. It's our own property. It's just an easement. So I wish neighbors would realize that. It's our private property. I pay taxes on it. It's like the easement in the back of your yard. Only the county has the right to come in and clean it when they want. But we don't bother the kids, but I worry about their health and safety, and I wish the township would look into that and try to get that fixed. I worry about the kids getting cut on the rusty pipe, and it's really ugly, and that pipe is this big. And then there's another one that comes in. And then the other thing I want to address is there is a backside to our sub, and I was here when there was only one entrance, and you had to go out the blacktop. But the point is, why should I pay the same as the blacktop when I'm getting ugly squiggles? I'd rather pay the money, even if it's 13 grand, to get a new road like you guys would get. But, you guys do need a new road, but the whole thing you're doing is all wrong. It's not thought through very well. And I really think people should pay per foot. Whatever your frontage is, that's fair. Some people have 200 feet, some have 80. So to be fair, I think you should pay what is your actual frontage. And I guess that's all I have to say. But I really wish you guys would look into the drainage, because it seems like that's what everybody's concerned about. And I think since we were developed at different years, we have different names of the subs, they should be treated separately and not thrown together to kind of blend the figures, and people, it's unclear if you're paying for what. The whole thing is not thought through very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to close the public hearing at 7:50 PM.
So moved.
Is that
Support.
Mr. Badkins? With support by Mr. Tominello. All right, discussion on the motion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment on the motion, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Burkowski?
Yes. Well, I did my best to write notes, and I'll do my best to try to answer some of the questions. I think the biggest, there are definitely a lot of misconceptions about this process and what this project will entail. But it's supposed to go, I'm going to try to just go right down because I wrote them in order of the way the comments were made. First of all, two different contractors. Not true. One contractor. One contractor countywide. So the county, Macomb County Department of Roads is responsible for our road. The township is not responsible for our road. Macomb County is. Residential roads throughout townships in Michigan, in Macomb County, are experiencing exactly what we're experiencing. They're failing, and there isn't sufficient money to fix them. Road funding in Michigan is broken. It's been broken for decades. We've had tons of folks go to Lansing saying they're going to fix them, and they're not getting fixed. And unless they change the funding structure, they won't get fixed. Not only the funding in terms of the way the money comes in, but also the funding in terms of the way it's spread out. Southeastern Michigan is a donor area for the rest of the state. So we all pay the majority of taxes for roads, and we don't even get a portion, a small portion of what we pay because of the formula. Back in 1951, Public Act 51 defined how funding for roads is collected and how it's distributed. And there was an acknowledgement by the legislators at that time that there isn't enough gas tax in northern Macomb County to be able to produce roads in northern Michigan, to be able to maintain and build roads in northern Michigan. So they decided on a formula that doesn't acknowledge the width of a road or the traffic. So when you go up to wine country on M22, the volume of traffic and the width of that road is the same as M97. And we all know Groesbeck gets a lot more traffic, a lot more heavy trucks, a lot more lanes, but the formula doesn't account for that. So as long as nobody in Lansing changes this formula, we're screwed. That's the bottom line. And they've been talking about it for decades. I'm in my 14th year as supervisor, my 16th year on this board, and it was the same then, and it's the same now. Nothing's been significantly fixed. So the county said, we're going to make a grant program available to fix residential roads. We're going to make matching funds available. Every township can apply for up to 3 projects, and if we pass it, we'll pay for 50% of the project. Then they bundle all those roads. So, for example, in the 2024 season, they're going to put out, my guess, randomly, probably 7 to 10 miles of residential roads in Harrison, Shelby, Clinton, Macomb Township, Washington Township. I really don't know what other townships were successful in getting a grant. But they're going to bid this as a large project. This is not the first time we've done a special assessment district for a residential road. We've probably been doing them for half a dozen years. ML Chartier is a huge contractor. They did Pine Ridge and Chartier in maybe 2018 or 2019. So one contractor is going to do this work, but all of those contractors have subcontractors. So the first thing, there's 2 different contractors. There's probably 6 different contractors. The guy who's doing the landscape may or may not work for this company, but their goal is to bid on a large project, and our experience from doing every project we've done through this process so far has been very positive. There's no fair way to split cost. It's true. If I'd rather pay nothing. I'm on the concrete portion. Many of you know that. I'd rather see the asphalt done and not pay a dime. But I recognize that the cost is so prohibitive that it'll never get done. So we talked to the attorney and said, is there some creative way that we can participate? And it's not someone said, some folks said, well, I'm willing to participate to help others. That doesn't mean that everybody on the asphalt portion agrees, but it's okay if you say, I'm willing to spend $7,000 to see the road done better. That doesn't mean that everybody on the $14,000 section agrees with it. But some people did sign that petition because they truly felt it was a fair and equitable way. But if you didn't think it was fair, you don't sign the petition. We should do this by front footage versus by parcel. clarification for the gentleman. The law says when you collect petitions, you must collect petitions by front footage. So the process of collecting petitions, signatures, says front footage must be the process by which you determine if people participate. The law does not say that the cost has to be divided by front footage. And the fact is, whether you have an 80-foot or a 100-foot lot, I mean, some of you know, I raised 6 kids. I got pretty much 2 or 3 cars on the road all the time. And I see a gentleman here who's a retired guy, and he probably only has 1 or 2 cars. So should it be by the car? Should it be by the driveway? Our experience is when you do it by the front footage, you're basically making winners and losers. And some of our subdivisions have 50-foot lots. So you've got someone who's paying twice as much, even though they have 1 driveway. So we can circulate the petition anyway. It's ultimately up to the people who circulate the petition. Our recommendation is to do it by the lot so that you're not choosing winners and losers. So front footage versus parcel, front footage for signatures, but you can divide the cost by parcel. Law says it has to be fair and equitable. Square footage of asphalt versus concrete. Again, we talked about this. All of the asphalt will be replaced. Not all of the concrete is going to be replaced. If anybody in our subdivision thinks that the concrete is so bad that it needs to be replaced, that's silly. But if there is no benefit to the folks that live in the concrete portion, it's difficult to say that there's going to be an SAD. So we're going to do as much concrete as we can, but the real need is for the asphalt. I have to back up, though. The biggest underline on this is this whole concept about drainage. If I heard drainage from one of you, I probably heard it from all of you. The requirement of the grant, you must do substantial drainage improvements. Both of the asphalt sections on Cloverleaf and on North Blum are flooded regularly. We all know that. And it takes forever to drain, and it basically just perks through the cracks in the road or into everybody's lawn. This project includes a complete reconstruction of the drainage for the entire asphalt portion, which means that, number one, we don't have flooding, and number two, the road lasts longer. Now, when we circulate the petition, the process is flawed, if you ask me, but I don't make the process because it's a county road. The county makes the process. The county says, if you show us that you have enough signatures, you can apply for the grant. Well, I don't know if I really want to sign the grant until I sign the signature until I know I get the grant. Our experience from doing half a dozen or so different neighborhoods is that the cost of drainage generally doubles the cost, but the grant pays for 50% of everything, not 50% of the drainage, 50% of the total project, in this case, on the asphalt portion. And there's a point to be made there as well. So we circulate the petition saying, here's what the cost is to just redo the asphalt, but if we're successful in getting the grant, we'll move forward. Of the 30-some signatures, I got roughly 20 of them, I guess, something like that. I tried to make it clear that if I don't get the grant, I don't want to do with the project either, because I don't want to just redo the road without fixing the drainage. That's silly. I wouldn't want to do that in anybody's neighborhood. Sometimes we do have people who come forward where drainage isn't a major problem, and they'll say, we don't care, we want to move forward with the grant or not. The drainage on the asphalt portion of our neighborhood is so bad, it would be silly to do the work without fixing the drainage. Good news, we got the grant. That means the drainage is included. So the survey work that they were out doing over the last week or two before it got really nasty was to look at the pitch of things and to make sure that the drainage is included. If there was a lot of discussion about how this estimate was, fuzzy math, why are you giving me estimates? The law says we can't assess you based on a guess. We can only assess you based on the actual cost. We don't collect more, we don't collect less, it would be silly. So we have to provide petitions with an estimate because we don't know what the cost is going to be. So we use historical data, as someone mentioned, from prior projects. We try to add in significant contingencies. In other words, I think it's 25%. We're trying to say, here's worst case scenario. But when all is said and done, come this spring, we're gonna get an actual bid. Department of Roads is gonna send out all this work for all these municipalities. One big project, we hope it's the most competitive. If that number is 10% higher than the number we told everybody, we can't move forward unless everybody still wants to do the project. Obviously, if it's within budget or it's underneath that estimate, we can move forward. So we try to get a high number and hope that the actual cost comes in lower. Sometimes that happens. We've had a year, I think if I'm going back, I'm not exactly sure which year it was, where the construction cycle was so crazy with all the ARPA money flying around that we couldn't move forward with those projects because the costs came in much higher than expected. So we can't move forward if it's 10% or greater over the cost that we put on the petition. Hard numbers versus an estimate. We do our best. We pay our township engineer to do this calculation based on historical data. MDOT collects every bid they have, and they put it into a database that all of the civil engineering firms can look at to say, here's what the cost was for a unit of asphalt, or a unit of gravel, or a unit of sod, or whatever it might be, grass seed, whatever it is. These projects are all unit prices. So right now, the project is in the engineering phase. They're literally designing this and coming up with engineered drawings, excuse me, with quantities. So they say, this is how many tons of asphalt it's going to take to do this. This is how many distance, yards, square yards of milling it's going to take to do this. If they find that they have to do more or less, that contractor agrees to a unit price, so they can't change the price after the fact. So it is a pretty controlled process. But there's no way for us to apply for the grant and go through the process and ask people if they're willing to pay without estimating it, knowing that the ultimate number we're going to truly pay is going to be the final cost. No measurements taken. Disagree. We paid thousands of dollars to have this project estimated last year and then updated again this year. The concrete amount is there was a question about the estimation of the concrete amount. Simply stated, if we walked the street right now, we would probably, if we took the time, if it was, obviously weather conditions were different, we'd identify the worst section of concrete. We could probably say, you know what, 8 out of 10 of us agree this is the worst section of concrete. And we might work our way backward and we'd say, well, this one isn't too bad, but I'd like to fix it if I can. And it's not going to be pristine and perfect when it's done, but we're going to try to fix as many problems as we can while keeping that overall cost. In other words, if there's a section of concrete and it's a little bit shifted and we can't grind it, but we're not able to fix it, we're still going to be way better off when we replace all of that asphalt and improve the drainage so that asphalt lasts longer. A comment was made, the drainage appears to be working, maybe on number 2, but definitely on not on number 1, right? Right. So we're not fixing any drainage on the concrete portion. It doesn't need to be fixed. The real need for drainage improvements is on the asphalt portion. This project includes that. Cloverleaf number 2, or the concrete portion, does not qualify for the grant. Not completely true. It doesn't qualify for this grant. But there are participating monies from the county, and I'm going to jump ahead on this a little bit. Public Act 51 of 1951, which has been updated numerous times, is the act that determines how money is collected by the state through various taxing, your registration fees, gas taxes. It also defines how money can be spent. Public Act 51 says a county road agency in Michigan is not allowed to spend more than 50% of the cost to rebuild a local road. So while I hear folks say, wait long enough and they'll fix it, the county is prohibited by law from fixing our road unless 50% of it comes from somewhere other than themselves. That either means the township or the residents. Someone had talked about this. I'm going to jump ahead. 27 municipalities in Macomb County. Harrison Township is the only municipality that does not collect a general fund millage. So think about that. If you live in rural Ray Township, they collect 6 or 7 tenths of a mil to pay for the function of the township. Harrison Township collects 0. There is no source for that money. But hypothetically, if the county were to say, you know what, we're gonna spend some money, or the township was gonna say, we're gonna spend some money. We have so many bad roads in Harrison Township. That's like putting a little generator into your power line and trying to power the whole neighborhood. It's not gonna happen. There is not enough money in our budget to be able to start fixing a road. If there were, God forbid, I would be doing my road first, for God's sakes. We can talk about the drain. That's a separate issue. When the Pettit Conlet was cleaned, that was a significant sum of money because somebody else was taking care of that drain. Because the Pettit Conlet was cleaned out when Mr. Morocco was our Public Works Commissioner, it was one of the drains that was addressed. It's in need of attention, but so many other drains in the township have had worse conditions that we're kind of trying to take care of some of those before we come back to the Pettit Conlet. This project doesn't address the Pettit Conlet drain. County Department of Roads is not going to address it, but we can still talk about the drain, and we can still work with the county, Public Works, to address some of the issues with the Pettit Conlet. It's been 13 years, I think, since it was cleaned out. I know that there are some areas that need some attention. Again, I can't stress enough, grant covers 50% of the total project, not just 50% of the drainage. Sheila said, asphalt side drainage is the biggest problem. I feel like I've addressed that. This project will be a complete reconstruction of that drainage. If you don't fix the drainage, the problem, the road will fail. Agreed, wouldn't do that. Spread out over how many years? I don't think we've done a project so far like this that we did any different, and that was a 10-year period. So it's spread over 10 years. What kind of warranty on the road, good or bad, whether I like it or not? We're not responsible for the road. I don't have the authority to say this is what must happen. Having said that, we've done these projects, again, over half a dozen years with good success. County's been good supporting it. I feel confident that if I were to invite, probably one of the older projects would be Chartier and Pine Ridge. I feel confident the residents in that neighborhood, if they were here, would have positive comments about the success of the project. But we don't control the warranty. I don't have the authority to say, this is the warranty we must have with our roads. It's a different agency, so we don't control that. Why are asphalt people paying 2 times versus 1 time? Again, some folks said I shouldn't pay anything at all because I live on the concrete portion. Other people said everybody should pay equal. This is kind of a democracy. We try to come up with what we think is the most fair, realistic, acceptable part. I think if it were possible to say we're going to collect petitions and the people on the concrete section could sign the petition and pay 0, I think that would be unfair. I don't think that's realistic. So we tried to come up with something to someone's point, and I understand someone might look at this and say, well, you're helping someone who's opposed to it, right? It's like trying to give CPR to somebody and they're pushing you away. Some people felt that was reasonable. I feel like I'm benefiting from this project, even though there may be no work in front of my home. But I do believe it is an improvement. I do believe it is an improvement of property values. No one here can prove either side. Our experience has been that is the case. So I explained Public Act 51. Can I recall my signature? We have historically not said you can recall your signature. It is a binding signature. It is, you're saying I agree to this. The 4-foot culvert under the road is mostly filled. It's true. So there may be a misunderstanding or maybe an explanation. The Pettit Conlet is a naturally occurring drain. And the Pettit Conlet was originally flowing out to the Clinton River. It kind of crosses South River just east of Bentley's. So if you kind of think it kind of goes underneath there and it flows out that way. The reality is, through the various high water cycles, the Pettit Conlet flowed backward and actually flooded the center of the township. So it was actually a source of flooding. When I first bought our home, Debbie and I first bought our home in 1990, someone talked about fishing. There were guys fishing in there. It was that big. I remember the young boys down coming over because it was so full. It was an ice rink. I set up hockey rinks there. It doesn't hold that kind of water anymore. So what happened was the engineering firm at that time, say 20, 25 years ago, made the decision to make the high point of that drain closer to the Clinton River, and now the water that hits the Pettit Conlet through our neighborhood actually flows toward North Point Parkway. It goes under North Point Parkway and flows ultimately to the Beechwood pump station, or behind the Beechwood. It goes between Beechwood and Maple Forest. It gets lifted there by a pump and then gets lifted again. But during the last high water cycle, we didn't experience that flooding in the center of the township, and we actually set up sandbags and a temporary dam just in from the Clinton River along there. Reason for the explanation is those culverts were set back when that road was built because the low point of the Pettit Conlet was at the Clinton River. So the point of that was that somewhere in the center of the township, the Pettit Conlet was high, and the closer you got to the Clinton River, the Pettit Conlet, the bottom or invert of any of those pipes would be low. So in essence, if we say, here's the Clinton River and here's the center of the township, this is what that drain should look like. When we decided to reverse it, we raised the bottom of the Pettit Conlet in our neighborhood. So it is a 4-foot, but it's not designed to be cleaned out to that 4 feet. It would just hold water. It's designed to be high or shallow in our neighborhood and flow in the other direction. So while there are some obstructions, the Pettit Conlet flows better than it did back before it was re-engineered, and it didn't provide for flooding during the last flooding high water cycle in 19 and 20. The maintenance on the road, the cold patch, that goes back to PA 51. That's all they're ever going to do unless there's a source of money to match their money to fix the road. One gentleman said, hey, you're talking about a new facility versus a new road. And I get it. It's a choice we have to make. We have an aging facility. We're looking at sources of money that we can use for that. So, for example, we still have ARPA money that we were able to roll into the general fund. That could be a source of some of that. We can look at bonding or borrowing money over a long period of time. But even if that facility costs us $4 million, $4 million is a fraction of what it would take to fix the local roads in Harrison Township. So what do? Where do we spend that $4 million? Do we spend it on our road? Do we spend it on 5% of the roads? Do we take a small amount and spread it out over every road? That source of money is not going to fix our road problem. Our local road problems are much bigger. Someone talked about it. We did go for a local road millage back in 2014. It narrowly failed. And since 2014, we've probably redone a dozen neighborhoods through SADs. Every time you do another SAD, let's face it. If we move forward with this project and 69 homes rebuild this, are you going to vote for a local road millage? Not if you're shelling out $7 to $14 grand over the next 10 years. So every time we do a new neighborhood, the opportunity for putting a local road millage on the ballot is futile. It's a waste of time. Every time we do it, less and less people are going to do it. And if you do pay for a local road millage and you pay, a couple $100 a year, doesn't mean your road's going to be redone. So an SAD is really the ultimate in local control. You don't pay any more or less for the project. You do get a grant to cover a large, or at least 50% of the project, and it directly benefits you. So I don't like the idea of paying a tax to the federal government and having it all go to Colorado. This is about as local of a tax as you can pay. Doesn't mean you're supportive of it, but in terms of the value of your dollar, this tax, if you will, this special assessment, gets us a match from the county and gets our road fixed. Someone said they didn't like how the numbers were manipulated for the grant. That's a fair statement. I understand that. I've lived on the road for 33 years, and not much after I moved in, that initial asphalt portion was repaved. So I'm going to say, 91, 92, somewhere around there, the asphalt was repaved. It was a different, the asphalt portion goes back to about, I'm going to say about 92. North Blum, I don't remember Cloverleaf, could be Cloverleaf, but I know North Blum was redone.
Yeah, there was a stretch coat that went in 1990 without question, went from South River Road straight down and around the corner.
Yeah.
It's called a stretch coat.
Yeah, it wasn't a reconstruction of the road, but it was back when, yeah. My mistake. My point is, my point is the last time that asphalt was touched was back in, if it wasn't 90, it was 91, it was right in that era. I mean, for the sake of argument, I suppose it doesn't make a big difference. But it, and I don't want to devolve this into an argument. My point is there was a time, and some folks that I spoke with said, well, we didn't do a special assessment back then. So it's important to understand that through that time, so from the 90s through the early 2000s, back in mid like 05, 06, 07, we used to get $600,000 a year from the state through revenue sharing. It's not required that they give it to us, but it was a part of changing how sales tax. It goes way, way back. The legislature has the ability to manipulate that. We used to get 600,000. We went to zero for discretionary. I forget what it is. There's two revenue sharings we get. One is by law, everybody gets the same amount. The other one is discretionary by our state legislature. There's roughly the same number of folks living in Hamtramck as there is in Harrison Township. Up till a couple of years ago, we were getting zero. They get 1.4 million. The state has the ability to decide where that money goes. And truth be told, if it's based on sales tax, my guess is, based on per capita income in Harrison Township, we probably pay more sales tax as a municipality than Hamtramck does. But I don't control that. So there was a time in our past when more money flowed from the state to the locals, and typically they would get to the end of the year, and this board of trustees, a prior board, but the folks who used to sit here, would look at various things they would do. They'd partner with Department of Roads, and that's how, and I know someone disagrees, but that's how North Blum was done. It was a cooperation between the county and the township. The cost to redo the road now is much higher. The solution for our section of road is not a skin coat. It needs to be rebuilt. The drainage needs to be done. So those days are gone. Someone said they already replaced the culvert under their driveway. I get it. I feel for you. I mean, here's the problem. Over time, so when you talk about when everything was built, it was engineered and it was done. Someone said, well, this neighbor might just fill in their culvert. This neighbor might have just done this or that. As those things happen, if you do, in fact, replace the culvert in your driveway, maybe it needs to be a foot deeper. But if the ditch on either side of your drive is filled in, where are you going to set that culvert? You're going to set it wherever the ditch is on either side. But the ditch may not be functioning properly. This project involves going from one end to the other, engineering that drainage, and if there's a new culvert, it's a part of the cost. They'll saw cut out the approach, they put in that new culvert, they set it. So they can't just come to your culvert and say, well, the culvert's here and the ditch is here. The entire drainage is re-engineered and redone. Another comment. I don't think the concrete is that bad. I agree. I just as soon pay nothing. I do not need this work in front of my home. It's really not the reason I signed this petition. I signed it because I truly believed that as a neighborhood, some collective values of all the sales of our homes will improve. Not everybody agrees. My opinion, a rising tide raises all ships. So, yeah, is there going to be work in front of my home? Probably not. Will I be able to walk to Bentley's on a Friday night without a flashlight? Probably so, because I won't be worried about twisting my ankle. Dennis, you mentioned you got a lake at the end of your driveway. Can it be fixed? This now is the time to understand those things, to talk about those things. I'm not intimate with that. It's not fresh on my mind. I know there are areas, but yeah, if there's an area we need, now is the time to talk about it, to make sure we include it in that design, and I'll make a note to talk to the engineer. Again, I mentioned Pine Ridge and Chartier are projects that are going on 5 years old now. I know it's not the best of weather conditions to go check them out, but we had very positive experience there. Let's see. Someone said, hey, they don't like the fuzzy math. I think that was you, Lloyd. I get it. There's no way for us. We have to do our best estimate, then try to pad it, and then trust that the county goes out and gets the most competitive bid that they can. And if it's over what we talked about, we don't move forward with the project. If property values go up, do taxes go up? No, not how it works. So we cannot reassess your home because of, so we're all on a paved road. We'll still all be on a paved road. Now, if you had a dirt road and you paved it, or you had a one-story home and you made it a two-story home, there was a change that occurred. But we're all on a paved road, we stay in a paved road. Will your property assessed value go up? Probably so. There's a high likelihood that the true value of your home will go up. I know some people don't agree, and they voice that. But we are prevented from increasing the taxable value, the amount that we pay in taxes, by any more than the amount of inflation or 5%. So nobody's getting reassessed. But will the assessed value of your home go up? It's quite likely. But will your taxable value go up? Only the rate of inflation. Someone said they would be willing to be part of the solution. They'd like to see more detail. I'm going back to my beginning. Road funding in Michigan is broken. And if they changed it now, and if they talked about, what was it, 45 cents? I think the governor first talked about. There's so much other problems with our road system. They're not coming down to North Blum and fixing our road anytime soon. So one gentleman said, hey, I'm 75 years old, I'll be dead before this is done. Well, you'll definitely be dead before this is done if we do nothing, because it'll never get fixed. Yeah, I don't know if I'll make it. But my point is that doing nothing is only an option if you like the present condition. There is no other source of money for this. And again, and I said this when I circulated petitions, it's not like I live on the road. Why in the world would I sign this petition if there was a better source of, if there was another way to do it, I wouldn't bring it to you, and I wouldn't sign the petition, and I wouldn't have encouraged others to do it. Work being done, but not on East Blum. I don't know if there'll be work done on East Blum. I don't know if there'll be work done in front of my home. What I do know is that when we're done, I truly believe we will have a better draining road. We're going to have a road that probably outlasts most of us in this room, and I believe it's a benefit to all of us. And that's the reason why I'm willing to kick in, and the reason why we came up with this cost division. And there was a discussion about the drain as an eyesore, riprap along the drain. Again, when that drain was cleaned out, we were dealing with someone who, let's face it, they've been indicted in federal court and served prison time, and that kind of crap was going on, right? We tried, and when we didn't play by the rules, we were pushed away. We have someone much better in Candace Miller in our Public Works office now. And I have no problem saying, hey, listen, we need to maybe do a little, give the Pettit Con a little cleanup and talk about riprap or some things we can do there. It's not a part of this project. It's independent. It's two separate responsibilities, two separate streams of money. But we have, as a board, approved matching funds for the past several years. The county has a 50-50 program. County Public Works has a 50-50 program to clean out drains. It's been, again, 14 years since the Pettit Con was addressed. Why not ask for that? But again, the two aren't tied. It's independent, but we can definitely talk about that. You can. Yeah.
With Lloyd, Dennis having water, I noticed the last couple of years, I don't know if you did something or when they did the ditch, I have standing water a lot now in front of my property where years ago I didn't. So are they gonna maybe look around in the concrete part and maybe they might have to redo some sections and make them fix that?
So short answer is I can't say that today. A bigger answer is probably going to have to do with two things. Right now, I'm trying to work with Department of Roads to get not matching funds for the concrete work, but they have a 60-40 program. 40 is better than 0. So if I can get some of the cost for the concrete work covered through Department of Roads, that increases that opportunity. The second thing is how this project comes back. So I'll say this, the spot right in front of my mailbox is typically wet. We all know what's in front of our house, right? You probably don't know that I get a wet spot, but I'm saying, well, that didn't sound right. But I got an area that holds water. My point is if the asphalt gets redone, and it's nice, and it drains, and it's dry, and I still have a spot that holds water in front of my mailbox, I'm still pretty good with that, right? Yeah. Sure, I understand. My point is we're gonna do the best we can, but we're gonna get to a point where we might scale that concrete work up or down based on how those bids come in 2024. So I don't wanna be here today and say, yes, you're gonna get this in front of your home, no, you won't. I don't have that level of control, but we're gonna do the best we can. Agreed. I know plenty of folks feel the same way. Finally, the last comment I had, someone said you should pay by frontage. I disagree with that. We did have the initial meetings where we talked about the process, talked about how it starts with the petition process. We ultimately drafted those petitions showing that it was by lot and not by front footage. So some folks may say, I think it should be front footage. I respect that. But we have not done a front footage, I think, since Bayhaven, which was probably 17 or 18. So that's my best I could to answer the questions. So good news, everybody was worried about drainage, we're doing drainage. That is a big part of the scope. Also good news, we have a grant, and we're doing the best we can to get as much money toward this as we can, and I'm trying to get more. And again, I'm a payer just like you. So we do have a couple other, hang on, I'm sorry. We do have a couple other motions that are gonna take some, we have to actually take action. And when we do take action on any item, we open up the floor for public comment. So to avoid a back and forth, we're gonna be opening the floor for 2 more motions. So there's 2 more opportunities for you to come up, ask questions, whatever that is.
Those are whatever the motion is about, correct?
Yeah, the adoption of resolution number 3 for Cloverleaf, resolution, in other words, we're gonna talk about Cloverleaf and North Plum 2 more times. So we're gonna open up the floor for public comment 2 more times. So I'm trying to run the meeting orderly, but I'm trying to also say you'll have an opportunity to have some follow-up questions. So, okay. Next on our agenda is item D2. Mr. Witt?
Yes, item D2 is consideration for resolution number 3.
3?
Yep, resolution number 3, which directs my office to prepare the roll, or more simply put, a list of who it will pay and how much. Ultimately, the final assessed cost is based on actual construction and the related costs associated with the project. But obviously, currently, the total project cost for residents, $645,41 of the cost per lot for concrete access road lots is $6,935.92, or an annual estimated payment of $882.84. And then a cost per lot for the asphalt roads, for access with the asphalt road is $13,871.84, and an annual estimated payment of $1,765.56.
Okay. Excuse me, so we do have a resolution that is before us. So any discussion, board, or is there a motion to adopt resolution number 3 for Cloverleaf Street and North Plum Drive's SAD road improvements?
I'll make that motion.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Batkins. Is there support?
Mr. Brado.
Oh, God, I swear, that's what's twice I got that. I'm sorry.
He's like Rich Little over here.
Yeah, you're throwing your voice at me. All right, is there support?
I'll support it.
Okay, support by Mr. Brado. No, I'm kidding you. All right, discussion, board members? Is there any public comment regarding the motion? Cloverleaf and North Plum, anything, we're gonna say, you can say anything you have to say.
I'll be brief.
That's okay.
First of all, I take the opportunity to try to help my sister here. I've tried it since that ditch was cleaned out. What happened, it's nobody's fault. Tony Ferlini was supervisor, and there was $8,000 left over when they got to your house. You know, the end of the ditch at the road. The contractor called Tony and said, "What do you want me to do for $8,000?" Tony told him, "Go on the other side of the road and dig as far as you can for $8,000. There was no engineering there, and as you know, the ditch is gonna be much shallower. He went over there and he dug past the bottom of the pipe, which is 44 inches tall, and there's 30 inches of water been sitting there ever since then. and there's mosquitoes and frogs and everything else. It's not a matter, it can never drain, it has to evaporate, that's the only way it can get away. Because both ends of it, the ditch beyond that was cleaned out a little bit, but it's this much higher, except for that 20 feet that the guy dug. And I've tried, and both sides, especially before our predecessor, Candace Miller, when the predecessor was there, they wouldn't even talk to me about it. And of course, the township said it's a county drain. The county says, that was a township project, you gotta go to them. So maybe you can get that thing filled in. The only other thing I had, I expected that you'd answer most of my points there, and you did it very well. But there is one thing here. I've got a copy of this petition, which isn't dated. What date was this actually released? The petition for circulation? Approximate time is good enough. November, September? August or September?
I'll take notes and I'll answer them once we close the floor for public.
Okay. Well, I got this technical memorandum from Wade Trim that's dated the August 23rd, 2023. Projected cost estimate is $1,068,044. And this thing says approximately 40% less, or 30% less, $645,041. If these numbers are to be correct, then you're over the 10% difference right now, by a long shot. You know, and this was dated the 23rd, I think is about the same time as this thing was circulated. Why weren't the actual numbers put on here? That's what I have.
Okay, thank you.
You say there's no guarantee on the asphalt how long it'll last. What about the sewers, when they redo these sewers? Is there any guarantee on how long this new sewer system is supposed to work? Because if that fails, the roads fail. And then down around where you have the asphalt part with all the catch basins, are they gonna come around and clean them out, vacuum them all out? Because there's times that those roads down there do flood. Doesn't last real long, but they do flood. I had this last big, rain during the summer, I had water to my front porch. Now, it didn't last long, lasted maybe a day and a half, but it did flood. And that's because those catch basins need to be cleaned out. And I don't know if that's part of this project or not.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to close.
There's no.
Oh, that's right, that's right, yes. I'm sorry. Okay, good. We'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. So the gentleman asked, when was the date of the petition? You know, I'm not.
September-ish.
Yeah, I know we had a meeting. Folks came in and requested it.
We had the meeting end of August, and then the petitions were beginning of September.
Okay.
Timeframe.
But maybe a point of clarification. So two different technical memorandums and the reason for two different costs. There's a cost to do the whole project, including drainage. There's an estimate, and there's a cost to not do the drainage. And so at the time, back actually in 2022, we made a kind of a last-minute attempt to try to apply this project, apply for a grant. So we had some information from 22. We updated that information for 23. The $1 million cost is with drainage. The 645 was roughly without drainage. And so the reason why we like to do that is because we're going to circulate it at 645, and we're thinking to ourselves, well, if it's $1 million with drainage, we feel confident, not 100% certain, but confident that getting the grant, covering half of the cost, should give us the confidence that the drainage project with a 50%, in theory, if the drainage project and the road was 1 million, and we got a 50% grant, should be 500,000. We circulate a petition at 645, everybody's anticipating 645, we get the grant for 500,000. The county came back and said the concrete restoration isn't a part of this project, so we can do the work, but we can't do a match on that. So I'm trying to see if we can remove it from the project or do the work under another grant program, if we can get the source of some money. Also, a little bit of confusion. Dave Newmer had been our township engineer for as long as I've been supervisor. He retired this summer, so Wade Trim gave us a new engineer, and, it takes a little time to get up to speed, so I think there were a couple of missteps in going through this process because it was new for him. There was a question about no guarantee on the road. Point of clarification, I'm not saying there's no guarantee on the road. I'm saying I don't have a control. I'm not empowered to say the guarantee shall be this or the guarantee shall not be this. The project stays open for a year past completion. So the contractor that does this work doesn't get fully paid for a whole nother year because, a part of this, because it does involve drainage, it involves sometimes areas that are sculpted and, you get a heavy rain, you get erosion. We have had to ask the county, reach out to the contractor, come back and do some restoration improvements. Hey, will you put this in this way? We've got a problem there. We've got some separation. We need some sealing. My answer is going to be the same on the drainage, a guarantee on the drainage. I don't control it. I'm not empowered to say this is what the terms of this shall be. I can say that the contractors that do this work are I'm trying to think of who did Venice Shores was also a big contractor. I just can't remember offhand. But I mean, these are guys these are contractors that do MDOT work. They're not, two guys in a pickup. These are big contractors. They're not going away. They're not going to destroy the relationship and reputation with Macomb County over a repair to the project in our neighborhood is pennies for these kind of contractors. No guarantees, I can't make them do something, but based on our past experience, they've been good about coming back, say, hey, we have some puddling here, we have some issues here, and addressing those in the follow-up year. Will they clean out the catch basins? Even better, they're gonna put everything in new. It's new construction. Anything they can save, they're gonna save.
The catch basins are part of the asphalt. The catch basins are on the concrete.
Correct. So, anything in the asphalt portion is all new. Anything in the concrete, we can definitely request to have cleanouts done. We've done it before, and in some cases, if it's a small enough job, we have our guys do it. We've invested in a pretty decent, newer Vector within the past few years. And so, we just were able to fix the drainage between North Blum and Cloverleaf with running a jetter through. Everybody's sump pumps were backing up. One guy had a geyser. Our guys were able to fix that. So, again, not gonna say always and never this will or this shall happen, but we've been successful in working with the county to fix drainage issues, and in some cases, we've just done them ourselves, so. All right, so that's, trying to do my best to address public comments. We have one more thing on this, but right now we have a motion. Any other board comment? So we do have a motion by Mr. Brada with support by Mr. Badkins to adopt resolution number 3 for Cloverleaf Street and North Blum Drive's SAD road improvements. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Badkin?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Rukowski?
Yes. Okay, next on our agenda is item D3 from the clerk's office.
Yes, this is resolution number 4, which sets the next date for our public hearing, as well as directs my office to send out the notices. So we, again, publish notice in the paper twice, as well as mail out to residents. We'd be proposing that we hold the public hearing on our Thursday, February 29th, 2024 board meeting.
So, leap day.
Leap day, yes.
Okay. Discussion, board members, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 4 for Cloverleaf Street, North Blum Drive, SAD road improvements.
All right, is there support? Support. All right, good. We've got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Olgiati. Discussion, board members?
I do have, I guess, one question.
Yeah.
And I know this has been thought thoroughly through. First of all, to have 31 residents who may or may not get improvements on phase two to pony up $7,000, that's a testament to the neighborhood. But somebody had mentioned it earlier out, I don't know if they're still here or not, but they're ponying up 7,000 while putting an additional 7,000 on majority of the people that, so from a legal perspective, I'm assuming we're okay with the way it was worded, and we're not gonna have any issues.
Well, don't look to me.
He's the one with JD after his name.
That's right, yeah. That's right.
You understand my point is, if I, where I live, I say, yeah, I wanna do this, I'm only gonna pay 7,000, but everybody over there, I wanna pay. Different situation, asphalt versus, concrete. Again, 31 people, that's quite a testament, but I'm more worried about from a legal perspective. This has happened before.
It has happened. It's happened actually on a residential street that I've lived on, but the fact is, there's no bright line test to determine these costs. And what the townships come up with here is, it presents itself as fair when you kind of try to balance the benefits received to the parties, and I don't see it being challenged successfully on that ground.
Yeah, I mean, $7,000 and I may or may not get benefit, and $14,000 and I should see good benefit.
Well,
I understand the philosophy.
and I respectfully, and I don't want to say I disagree with you, but having lived on that street for 33 years, if they do nothing in front of my home, but they repair the asphalt, I receive a benefit. I receive a road, right? I receive a road that doesn't jar my vehicle when I drive down it. I don't run the risk of twisting my ankle, and I know that it won't be flooded and having to go around somebody, come to a stop, kids walking on their way to
I
school.
meant more of a in front of your house benefit.
Sure, but it's important to make that distinction, because I think 31, or whatever the number you just spit out, a substantial number of people said, I do believe I will benefit from this. And I think that's like, I'm willing to spend $7,000, and I haven't said, will you do something exactly right in front of my home? Right?
And that was where I was going with the whole thing. I think it's a testament to the area.
Simply stated, I don't believe that asphalt portion of road will ever be replaced if the cost were totally borne by the people on that section of asphalt. If you take that cost and you look at what that, the majority of homes are on the concrete. So if you take out that 7,000 times, I don't know, whatever the quantity is, right, that's a significant portion.
Actually, it's 215,000.
There you go. So, I mean, you're looking at a project that pushes that cost back to those homes. So, again, does everybody agree? No. That's a process. But to Mr. Huth's point, and the reason why we began this process, clearly before we floated the idea of circulating these petitions, was to talk to Mr. Huth.
Obviously,
right? Yeah. But it's a valid question. So we are on D3, so we had some board discussion. Before we act, again, before we take action, if anybody has any questions, nobody's in the on-deck chair, but I know there was significant participation for this issue. So you're welcome to come up to the podium, because people at home like to hear, so we won't go back and forth with the audience.
Bill Servio. I have a couple questions. Lot number 5 and 6, which is included according to the petition language, that was combined with lots, looks like 1 and 2, and that's part of the drugstore complex. Is 5 and 6 going to be assessed? Because you included it in there. Maybe it shouldn't be in there. Maybe they should be excluded if it's not legal for you to collect. That's their backyard now. I got the map here if you want to see it.
No, I can pull it up. slow. You got it. Oh, yeah, I don't believe 5 and 6 are included in your,
Well, the petition says otherwise. It says 3 through 25.
The, their inclusion in the original petition was in error and has since been removed.
I didn't hear you, Adam.
Their inclusion in it was a mistake. The petition, the resolutions that we're adopting for the process are.
If you can't include them legally, then maybe you need to change the motion slightly and eliminate.
It's in the resolution like that. It's
Oh,
3,
okay.
4, and 7 through 25.
Okay. And then I had a comment about the concrete. I believe that $230 a yard for concrete is unsustainable, and we're just a little flea in the big picture of things, but the housing industry is suffering right now, and it's not going to ever be able to pick up with those kind of costs. They're unsustainable, and I don't see why they should be that high except supply and demand. Somebody thinks they can do this and they charge it. You know, gravel pit's the same gravel pit when it was $50 a yard, then $230. So where I'm going with this is if you can push back on it, I think that the cost of any work that you do in phase 2 on concrete will be less next year than it is right now.
okay, thank you. Any other public comment? We'll close the floor for public comment, so I think we clarified that the resolution does not include those parcels, so I think we covered that. Again, the numbers that we have incorporated in these estimates are, for lack of a better word, artificially high. It is competitively bid, so the actual cost that we will be paying for the concrete work is competitively bid by a unit price. You know, we're adding a large contingency in here. You know, so I suppose there's folks who say, well, when you put a big number out, folks are gonna bid higher. The system isn't designed for me to to put in artificially low numbers and everybody get a petition and have the project come in over. So the numbers that are used, unit price numbers, are generally higher or at the higher range, and the contingency is put in there as a cushion so that collectively, we hope that the project comes in lower than what we tell everybody. I don't want to come back and say it's $8,000 instead of $7,000. I'd like to be able to come back and say it's $6,000 instead of $7,000. So those numbers are set up that way. But the ultimate final cost we pay will be based on a competitively bid project. So maybe that answers that question.
And I will say the cost of waiting has not borne out that anything has gone down. When we did, the first project I did in 2015 was $2,600 per home for an asphalt pavement. In 2019, it was $6,800 for asphalt paving.
With a grant.
With a grant. And now we're looking at consistently $11,000 to $15,000 of estimates and bids for projects. And so the arc of cost is not in our favor. No, I'm just saying our experience for cost, it's a consistent.
All right, any other board discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Olgiati to adopt resolution number 4. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Tominelli?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. All right, thank you, board. Next on our agenda are some appointments. First of all, civil service. Board members, Tim Duncan has applied to serve on the Civil Service Commission as the resident representative. Mr. Duncan is currently the fire chief for Clinton Township. He's soon, I believe he's anticipating his retirement. He serves on our planning commission. As you know, the Civil Service Commission plays that role in establishing eligibility lists and certain things for firefighters. So I really believe the civil service has three appointments, one that comes from the fire union, one that comes from a resident, and one that's a jointly approved individual. So I believe having Chief Duncan's experience on the Civil Service Commission would be valuable, so I recommend his appointment.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Next on our agenda, item E2, Nathan Stempel has applied to be a part of our Economic Development Corporation. He is a business owner, so it is our recommendation to appoint Mr. Stempel to the Economic Development Corporation for a 6-year term to expire January 23rd, 2030.
So moved.
All right, is there support? Okay. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on our agenda, a reappointment. A current member, Shane Gleason, is a current member of our zoning board of appeals. He's interested in continuing to serve. He's served very well so far. So the recommendation would be to appoint Mr. Shane Gleason to the ZBA for a 3-year term to expire January 23rd, 2027. Any discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, so we've got a motion by Mr. Brado, a support by Mr. Badkins. I know Mr. Brado has served with Mr. Gleason.
He does a great job.
Yeah, so I appreciate, and I'm sure he appreciates your motion. Discussion, board.
Solid member.
Hearing no discussion and seeing no public comment, please, we got a motion with support. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next is a reappointment to the DDA board. Danielle Devlin has been a member for several years. She would like to be considered for reappointment to the DDA. Would be a 4-year term expiring January 23rd, 2028.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Olgiati. Ms. Devlin has been an asset, and I know she would continue to do so. So I appreciate the appointment or the motion. Discussion?
Is she a resident in that DDA area?
She is not. So neither. So there is a certain quantity of people who have to have an interest or live in the DDA, but not all of them.
Okay.
So she has been a member. We do have, so for example, Mr. Cortez is, Scotty is, and he represents a business in the area. So yeah, so there are some, but she is a resident of the township.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is item F, from the Finance Department on page 103. Let's see. Okay.
So, recent contract changes with the fire chief changed the vesting schedule related to the contribution for the MERS retiree healthcare savings account to the same schedule as the finance director. In order for the chief's vesting to be updated, the township must move him into the same division. MERS is recommending that we name the division to include all employees that could potentially be in there, so we won't have to go through a process of amending it down the road if there are other members that be eligible. So we're recommending that we amend it to the directors and fire chief, which will include all those people that would qualify for this potentially.
I'll make, are you making that motion?
Oh, go ahead, Lee.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there support?
I'll support that.
All right. So we had approved this in principle when we approved the chief's contract. This is kind of after the fact to clean up the language. Any discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Supervisor, do we miss agenda item number 1960, the reappointment for Mr. Gallo?
No, I skipped, I'd asked to
We'd
remove
remove
that. Yeah,
I'm
remove
sorry,
that.
okay,
Yep,
okay, my
yep.
apologies.
I apologize. So now we move on to item G1 from the clerk's office.
Yes. So the township has used Granicus for our digital agenda management and minute creation for the last 7 years approximately. So the clerk's office felt it was time to review the providers in the field and see what options were available and if Granicus was still the right solution for Harrison Township. We reviewed 6 different service providers and recommending the board approve the contract with Civic Plus at a cost of $8,636 in the first year, $5,035.80 in year 2, and it's a 2% increase after that is what is in their contract. Civic Plus had the lowest annual operating cost and software that we feel will be beneficial for how we create agendas and minutes. So we're requesting the board to authorize us to contract with Civic Plus for those costs. I will say, I'm going to work with Mr. Huth on the contract. There's a couple things that we need to change in their contract, and they said they'd be amenable to it. One of them was a venue. If there's a dispute, they're headquartered out in Colorado. I don't think we want to have a lawsuit out there if it ever came to that, so, stuff like that, so.
Mr. Witt, did you get any referrals, like from other townships or municipalities?
Yeah, I reached out to some of my peers in the field. Anyone that's switched to them lately has had really good things to say.
Okay.
It's a more single product app. Granicus has grown by buying other providers
Okay.
and bolting their parts together into like this Frankenstein system. So I actually, the system that I use to create the agenda is different than the system I use to create the minutes, which is different than the system I use to create the minutes in the meeting. So it's a bunch of different systems all put together, and it leads to a lot of complications. It makes it difficult to deploy in, say the DDA or something like that, which is one of our more, maybe there's not a professional person in there taking the minutes. With this software, it's completely web-based and like point and click, really simple. So we'll be able to actually expand it out to all our boards and commissions over time. The training on it is going to be pretty simple, and there's no cost for any additional boards, that kind of stuff. So again, increased transparency as we're able to get that additional minutes and stuff out online for all our smaller boards. So.
Well, it's good to hear that somebody went before you to pave the trail.
Yeah, they're a big company. I mean, Civic Plus,
Okay.
they own MuniCode, who does our minute codification, or our
Ordinance.
ordinance
Ordinance,
codification.
Yeah, and as a, as a much lower level user of Granicus than you, it's kind of glitchy and quirky. I haven't, when seeing this, I was kind of excited, because I kind of thought the same thing, like, you gotta have some references too, but, I won't miss Granicus.
I agree with you.
It was the best electronic digital solution we've ever had.
Yes.
That being said, it was the only one.
At the
Right,
time.
exactly. No, and I think and it has saved paper, it saved time.
Yeah.
It's, you pull up an old agenda item, you duplicate it, it works. But like, there's no spell check, it's easy to miss things, there's things that we come to take for granted. So I think it's a good idea. So is anybody willing to make the motion to contract with Civic Plus for the management software for $86.36 in the first year and $5,035.86 in year 2? Do we need to say with 2% escalators, annual escalators?
Well, I would just, if we approve 2 years, and then I'll come back to the board at
Okay.
that point. We'll have a couple years under our belt there.
To see? No, that's fine. All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Tominello. I appreciate the work the clerk's office put in to investigate this. Any other discussion?
Well, just under their terms and conditions, I know, Mr. Waite, you had mentioned you have to talk about if there was a lawsuit, changing some language there. But on page 133, it says an 8% increase each year. Is that? It's on page 133 under their terms and conditions. I know you mentioned 2%. Is that after the first year?
I'm sorry, I don't know,
Page 133?
of our packet.
Yeah.
That's diligent.
That's diligent. Are you looking at?
Ah! That's why we didn't go with them.
That's right.
Yeah, good call. Okay, I apologize.
No, it's okay, and I'm gonna send Mr. Huth the entire terms and stuff. And just
Yeah,
make
this
sure.
isn't something on fire, right? I mean, this is something you
Well,
wanna move toward.
I gotta kick him off, just because there is an onboarding process.
Sure, but what I mean is this isn't as if we have a deadline with, when is our deadline with Granicus?
Like April, we have a couple months.
Yeah, that's what I meant, so, okay. All right, good. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we have got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mr. Tominello. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Next is page 205. So that's a big package there you have information. Item H1. So, board members, we did post, the board approved posting the position for PCCBA Secretary at our November 13th, 2023 meeting. We advertised the position and conducted interviews. The 4 members of the interview committee unanimously chose Miss Melody Piccolo for the position. Her information is in the board packet. I recommend that we extend an offer of employment to Miss Piccolo for the position of PCZBA Secretary at the starting salary of $46,080.33, plus benefits subject to a 90-day probationary period.
I'll make that motion.
Support. All right, got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Badkins. All right, and we do have some prior experience with her working with elections, and it was very positive, so I feel like it's a good option. But again, it goes back to the same thing. Really, the probationary period, usually gives us an even more valuable window onto the option, so.
Who's the manager of this?
So, PCZBA really falls under the building official, so Mr. Condon. And as we typically do, our interview committee was the 3 of us plus Mr. Condon, thinking that he's the person that has to have, kind of have that say. We had good candidates. We had a couple other candidates. It was, like when we were done, we kind of really hashed back and forth, and but it wasn't an easy option. I think there's some folks there that if there were an opening, we might call them back in for an interview, but at this time, this was the recommendation.
And when is Sabrina's last day?
So at this point, we haven't really nailed that down. I believe Ms. Piccolo had said she wanted to give her employer 2 weeks' notice, and she did inform us that she had a vacation planned, I think, for
The week of the 5th. So she's starting like the 12th-ish.
Yeah, so, and we want to have some overlap, but we do have Sabrina, and we also have Cinda helping out so we'll kind of get this gal up to speed and then see between the 2 of them if there's a preference, one or the other. But once this person's trained, we'd either end that temporary relationship with one of those 2, and we kind of take a look and ask either one of them if they have a preference. Maybe someone says, hey, I'm done, whatever. So we'll make that call.
And it might, I was talking to Mr. Condon today, and that job runs on a very monthly cycle. So it might not be a full, like I need 4 weeks overlap, but it might be like, hey, I need you 2 days in week 3 to go through something. So it might be some flexible time as opposed to constant.
My only comment was the fact that that's a position that really, I think, needs quite a bit of training, because there's a lot of different things that they have to deal with, just in terms of codes and ordinances and things along that line, when different builders and things like that come in. So I just was kind of curious on who did that training, or how did they go about, because I could see from her application that she didn't have any municipal experience in that regard. So.
Right, yeah, we didn't have any applicants that came with any field-specific experience. Or at least no one that we interviewed. I know we had a couple applicants that had withdrawn. But what I would say is, you're right. The likelihood of hiring someone that has PCZBA experience is pretty slim. We do have Adam Young, who, we can lean on a little bit. We have already enrolled an unknown person into the citizen planner course that MSU Extension does. It's coming up, so we've already said, hey, we want you to take this class. So that's an educational option. And then what we'll probably do is reach out to a neighboring municipality and try to connect her with a peer in one of our, peer communities, kind of, hey, who can I call on a Tuesday with a question sort of thing. So, but certainly we're losing a lot of experience with Mrs. Mancini. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we've got a motion by Mrs. Rose with support by Mr. Badkins. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. Next is item H2 regarding the GELC supervisor contract revision. We recently approved a tentative agreement with the GELC Supervisors Union. We had discussed an additional change, but the change required a supplemental actuarial analysis before taking action. You may recall, Board, I did provide the attached analysis via email to everybody Friday, January 5th of 2024. So we do have the analysis in there. I have Article 33 of the contract that has the proposed change shown in red. The analysis by our actuary use the increase in the actuarial accrued liability is deemed minimus for the one member impacted by the change. In other words, the law that governs us making changes to pension systems, say if there's an enhancement, we can't just say, hey, let's vote to make a change. We have to say if it's an enhancement, no matter how minor, we have to have a number. This change was so minor, our actuary said, I can do it with a letter, I won't charge anything, just send you a letter saying it's not a significant or measurable financial change. It is the spousal death benefit, just to make everybody equal within that bargaining unit. So, so I, I recommend adopt the proposed change to Article 33 of the GELC supervisor contract effective immediately.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Tominello. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, well, we come to the public comment section. We do have a closed session, J1, to discuss the GELC general employees negotiations. But as is our policy, we will open the floor for general public comment prior to closed session.
Board members, C. William Bardell, 27-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. Clean up, fix up, people helping people. Just want to remind everyone, check out Save Lake St. Clair, follow them, and see what's going on. And, we'll try to protect our lake as best we can and work out as many obstacles as possible and help out our wonderful lake. And everybody stay safe and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. Are there any board comments? Hearing no board comments, I'd be looking for a motion to enter into closed session to discuss GELC general employee negotiations at 9:08 p.m.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Brado. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes, thank you. Take a brief recess, I suppose. I hope we didn't catch something on the All right, board members, I'd be looking for a motion to enter back into open session at 9:40 PM.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mrs. Rose to enter into open session. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Backens?
Yes.
Mrs. Rose?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Olgiati?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. There was a suggested motion from closed session to approve the GELC general employees 90-day contract and letter of agreement, subject to attorney's approval.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Tominello, a support by Mr. Brado. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
All right, got a motion by Mrs. Rose, a support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries, meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.